lesson on elimination. Now, sometimes it's not obvious what's going to eliminate. Because if I add them up, this becomes 15, this becomes -6. If I try to subtract, that's -5x, that's +8. So adding and subtracting doesn't work. But what you can do is change one of the equations. Now in the last examples I gave you, I changed the bottom one. Now in this case, I'm going to change the top one because I noticed that these two numbers, 5 is a factor of 10. So I can turn that 5 into a 10, but I don't just want to turn it into a 10. I want it to cancel out, so I'm going to multiply it to make it a -10. So to make this number a -10, I'm going to multiply by -2. So it's going to look like this. You distribute -10x minus 2y equals -18. So everything on top changes. This time I'm not going to change the bottom one. Leave the bottom one the same. All right, now I combine it. Now I do elimination here. Cancels out. -9y, -36. Because they're both negative, they don't subtract. They actually make bigger negative numbers. Divide by -9, I get a +4. Yeah, I know, it's kind of weird, but I get a +4. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug it back into the original. So I'm going to get this, 5x plus 4 equals 9. And now I'm going to solve for x. Subtract 4 from both sides. Divide both sides by 5. So my answer is 1, 4. Now remember, the reason I'm writing them like this is because these are two lines, and this is where these two lines meet. This is the coordinate. That's what you're telling me with that. Okay, here, same deal. Okay. I don't know what you're going to change. Now you have a couple options. You can try to put a number in here to cancel out x, or you can change this number to match 9. You have to choose. No one's going to tell you how to change it. So there's two ways you can do it. If I want to cancel out a -4, I want this to be a +4. So I can multiply everything here by 4. Or if I can turn this 3 into a 9, if I multiply this by 3, I can cancel out the y's. It's your choice. But whatever you multiply this by, you multiply everything. So I'm actually going to multiply everything by 4. But I could have done this one. I'm just don't have time to do both. So the top one will not change, but the bottom one's going to change. Everything gets multiplied by 4. Even this number. Okay, now for elimination. These cancel out. This makes -3y. This makes -15. Divide both sides by -3. You get the answer. Sorry, not 5. +5. Take that and plug it into the original. No, actually, I want to plug it into the bottom one. Now the reason I'm going to plug it into the bottom one instead of the top one is because the bottom one has smaller numbers. So it should be easier to solve. Should be, I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to plug that into the smaller numbers. So this makes this. I'm going to move the -15 by adding 15. Yep, that was easier. I don't even have to divide. So my answer is 9, 5. That's my coordinate. That's where these lines meet. So this method, if you have to change it, it takes a little bit more work, but works exactly the same as the last assignment. Okay. Now, sometimes it's not that obvious. Like I can't turn 3 into 5 and I can't turn 4 into 9. When this happens, you have to change both of them. You have to change both of them. There's no way around it. So you choose. You want to change these to cancel out? If you're going to do these two, the easiest thing would be to multiply the top one by 3 and the bottom one by 5. But just remember, everything would multiply by 3 and everything here would multiply by 5. Or here, multiply these to match. I can multiply this one by 9 and this one by 4. It's up to me. It's actually up to you. I'm actually going to choose this one. I'm going to choose to multiply this by -3, and this one I'm going to multiply by 5. And the reason I'm making this one negative is I want these to cancel out, which means one of them has to be a -15 and the other one has to be a +15. So this is what it looks like. That's the top one. And here's the bottom one. Okay. So now, elimination time. This cancels out. I get -57, and I get 0. Oh, this is weird. I divide by -57. Y equals 0. Because 0 divided by anything is going to be 0. So this is kind of interesting. So now I just take this number and plug it in to my original problem. Okay, so just because I have 0 doesn't mean it's no solution. It just means that it touches at 0. So 0 is an answer. When I plug it in, that's 0. So this is gone. I'm left with this. Divide both sides by 5. I get x equals -6. So my answer is -6, 0. This is where the lines meet at -6, 0. So if you get a 0, guys, it's not a big deal. That's part of your answer. Okay? All right. Last example for this. All right. This would be really big to change. It might be easier to change these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the top one by 5. Sorry about that. And the bottom one by 2. And the reason I'm not making this negative is because this is already a negative sign. It is already a negative sign. So I don't need to make it negative. When I multiply it, it'll already be negative. Okay, so here's what the top one looks like. 10x plus 40y equals 30. That's the top. The bottom one, -10x minus 40y equals -30. Okay, this cancels out, but now also I notice, oh wait, this cancels out too. So there's nothing left on this side. I get 0 on this side. Oh, so it's like the other one. No, it's not. The letter didn't cancel out. The letter was still there. There was still a y. There was still a variable. Here, the variables are gone because they cancel out. Even the number, even here, cancels out. So what does this mean? Again, does this statement make sense? Does 0 equal 0? If that's true, what that means is it doesn't matter what you plug in, they will always be equal to each other, which means this is all real numbers, or other people like to say infinite solutions. It's the same thing. You can write either one you want. So if you want to write all real numbers, that's fine. If you want to write infinite solutions, that's fine. Now, if this didn't cancel out, let's say this made 60. If this said 0 equals 60, that does not make sense. 0 is not equal to 60. This would be a no solution if they're not equal. So if they're not equal, write down no solution. But these numbers are equal to each other. So that's infinite solutions. And that's it, guys.